let's talk music production, and let's talk about how I make music. We're just discussing about how there's many tutorials on the internet about how to use Ableton. You'll see how I use it, but more so, it's not just going to be about Ableton. We might dig into some other things as well. And if we revise the whole process of how I make music, I would say that one thing that strikes me as something very important that a lot of people overlook is organization. Organizing your workspace and start from there. So since a lot of people are often starting making music from scratch and have an empty project like I have right now, it might feel overwhelming to know exactly what you're going to start with, because you've been wanting to do music for a while. Probably you finally decided to buy a copy of Ableton or something else. You sit in front of the computer, you manage to make it work, but then what happens? The thing is, what really matters is to create content. With content, later on, you're going to be able to make music. So the difference between me, someone that is a producer for over 20 years, and you, who probably is starting or is intermediate, is that I never start with an empty project. And I haven't started with an empty project for my own music for ever since I started using Ableton in 2002, which is, a long time. So it's a bit of a challenge even for myself to start with an empty project. So where do we start with that? Maybe you're gonna ask. And the question is, I don't know. Just joking. No, I do know. I know something, which is, like I said, you need content. When you have content, you're gonna be able to work on an idea. When you have an idea, then you can make a song. You cannot make a song without having an idea. Where do ideas come from? Some people come in the studio with an idea. They will record it on their phone, on a recorder, or maybe they will have done something somewhere. Some people go from loops. They buy loops, which is, I think, an excellent method, which I will look into. And the other idea is to prepare future sessions of creation by creating content. So by content, what I can do is, and this is what I'm going to do, percussion. You'll need percussion if you make dance oriented music, electronic dance music. And you need melodies, and you need basses, you need effects, you need textures, you need all of that. So what you'll see with this class is also a listing of different plugins that I use, and also some samples that I will include in this package. So you'll be able to kind of play Legos with your music, which is you import sound, and you can already start with content, but you'll see how I create it. So enough talking, and let's just dive in. As I said, this is the empty project. The empty project is always intimidating if you are a writer, or if you've been writing, or if you've been into classes. You might have gone into this moment where, in French, we call that le syndrome de la page blanche, which is like, I would say, kind of like the writer's block, which is you sit in front of a paper or in front of your screen and you say, how do I start writing a story? How do I start making something out of nothing? And it's exactly the same dilemma of making a song. The most common myth that I've seen with people that want to make music is that they usually think that they're going to start with the beginning of the song and then they build it from there, while it's actually the opposite. Not that you start with the last part, but you'll start with the kind of the middle part. You want to have the middle part kind of thought and planned, and from there you're going to build the structure. So what happens in the middle part of a song usually is, it's what I call the peak time. In pop music, they call that the chorus. In techno or electronic music, the middle part is where all the sounds pretty much are playing. So we are going to start having fun building some percussion, and also what I want to show you is a technique that I call the drafting before designing. Drafting means that I'm gonna kind of have a skeleton of the song. All the sounds are gonna be there temporary. It's just to give me an idea of what goes where. And then after that, I can start swapping sounds that I like and dislike. And it's kind of the same thing with the melodies. Usually I start with a very generic melody just to kind of have an idea of the tone of the track, how it's going to develop. And once this is set, it's going to be easy after that to just swap it with probably better synths and stuff. So, I was talking about organization, and one of the things that I've done is, and this is fantastic for the version 10 of Ableton, which is you can create your own set of collection here on the left. When I talk about organizing my session, one thing that I've done, and this is something I would invite anyone to do as well, especially if you have a lot of plugins. So all these are plugins that have been classified under the developer's name, which is useful in a way because sometimes I want to see what Audio Damage has, and I'll see like a bunch of things. But I've managed to put them, let's say Quenta, I would like to have it as a sound design tool. So I will give it the this tag, and this will go here, and then in here all the sound design tools that I have are here. That's quite a lot. I have probably too much, and sometimes it can be overwhelming even for myself. But I have to say that sometimes if I work on something and I'm like, okay, this needs a bit of spice, this needs a little bit of Frank sauce, then I'm gonna go in the sound design section, and I'm just gonna look into there. Like I have delays, I have reverbs, I have weird pitch shifters, and all kind of saturation. And there's one thing, which is synths. I don't have so much of them. I have more actually, I just didn't tag them. But this is really useful for the melodies. Those are usually this is not the synth though. That's wrong. See, I just can remove it, and then if I come back, it's gone. So that's great. Where do we start? I mean, I could start with finding what's going to be the tone of the track, and while I don't want to say, okay, the hook of the song is na 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 na, sing something. I don't want to go there because I feel that's too much direction to what I'm going to do. I want to stay really open to whatever I'm going to explore today. I'm going to be working with that. So there's a little bit of insecurity there for people that are beginning, but the good part is it will not discard ideas that are actually could be really interesting in maybe in a week. Maybe if you sleep on it, you will eventually really love it. So I want to start with something very simple. And one thing I want to say is today I'm going to be working on a techno track. I want it to be dance floor. I want it to be mostly for DJs to play. So knowing this, if I know beforehand that these criterias are going to be what I'm going to be working with, then I can set my session for that. So the first thing is, if I want to have something that is dance floor, more or less, I can be at 120. But 120 is a little bit slow in certain contexts. So I want to reach out to people that are playing a little bit faster. So I want to go to 124 BPM. Why 124? I mean, there's no reasons. The reason is if people are playing at 120, it's not so far from there, so the DJs can pitch it down. And you can easily reach people that are playing like 126, 128, which is like a pretty fast tempo speed to play in a club, which is usually working really well in festival as well. So 124 is kind of right in the middle. It will work in smaller events, could work in bigger events. So it's a pretty safe speed for an electronic music song. Second of all, I'm gonna decide that this is gonna be a 4/4 song. Like I'm saying, like the kick is gonna go like boom, boom, boom. It's not breakbeat. It's gonna be like boom, boom, boom. So very, very simple. So I'm just gonna set that up right away. I'm just gonna go to fix bar, fix grid, and I'm gonna go for my kick. It's gonna be just, whoopsie. So I'm gonna fold it, and then these are my kicks. I'm gonna drop it to 1/8. This is 1/8 is of course the number of steps in this. And I'm just gonna, I'm just setting it up. I like to start with 1/4 and then 1/8, and then I'm gonna decide what is coming in 1/8 and then what is coming in 1/16 and when is coming in 1/32. And that will kind of like, if you start with the simplest things, you can it's easier to build over that than if you kind of try to bring the full picture right from the beginning. So I'm going to add another MIDI channel, which is going to be the foundation of my song, which is the bass line. The bass line is like, as you know, it's low end. It works with the kick. And it's going to be deciding a lot of things, because it's going to deciding in what key my song is going to be in. So I typically like to have my song in C, or at least to start with. We talked about being generic. So I'm just going to come here, and just to make sure that I'm in C, in the MIDI effects, there's the scales. And in the scales, I'm going to be in C. So I'm just going to type in here just to show you the different options that we have. And in C, didn't happen right away, but here you go. So that's going to be in C. So whatever I'm going to be playing is going to start like this. And after that, I can expand and build over. If you know a bit of my music, you'll know that I've always been into the dubby side of things. So, of course, you're going to see some dub-related techniques today. Some people will find that useful. And I find that dub is kind of I mean, that's my interpretation, but I find that dub works well in a lot of environment. I've rarely played dub music and had negative feedback from it, but that's my experience, of course. So I'm going to go for dubby notes, and in here, I'm going to be playing a few notes. So I'm going to go in 1/8. And I'm just going to start with like a C2 note, and I'm going to go with like the ultimately simple bass line, which is a simple one note. Not 2 bars, just 1 note. So we have kicks in here. And then you're going to say, well, I don't hear anything of what you're playing. And that's what I call organization. I'm spending a lot of my time when I make music without any sound at all. And sometimes when people sit next to me, it makes them feel almost uncomfortable. I mean, if you think about Beethoven, which was deaf, and if you think about classical composer from a long time ago, they wouldn't have any orchestra in front of them, but they would have like a kind of like a basic idea in their mind, and eventually have like a really full-on piece as they would build. And I like to say that for my experience as someone that makes music, I like to have kind of like boundaries of direction of what I'm going to be doing.